32 of the Corner of Knit and Tea with me. I'm Laura. I am Fluffy K on Ravelry. I'm Fluffy Kira on Twitter and Instagram. And this is Liz, the travel correspondent on Come Knit With Us. I always want to say come spin with us because that's what came first. And I am up today in beautiful Highland, Kansas, and we are taping from the Farley homestead. And
yes,
we have
notice the lovely 70s era wallpaper with all the stuff on it from like the bicentennial.
Well, so Liz comes from Highland, Kansas, which is about an hour and a half from where I live. So I decided to come up today and we talked about what we were working on. So I just brought the laptop and I thought we could tape up here and knit and sip tea and just have a good day. So I usually start with tea. So let's start with tea. I'm sipping some almond sugar cookie, which, glare, there we, kind of. It's an almond sugar cookie from Tea Time Scottsdale, and it's in this really cool 70s frog mug. So that's my frog and my almond sugar cookie tea, and Liz was wonderful and brought me some tea from Scottsdale, so thank you. What are you sipping?
I am sipping Stash organic breakfast blend.
Yum.
So
I love your mug. It's a big mug.
Yes, it's a very big mug.
That's delicious. I think you brought me a little bit of this before.
Was it because I know I gave you some of the Santa's cookies?
You brought me Santa's cookie. The first time you brought me a little bit in Ziploc baggies, I think, when I visited in Tempe.
Yeah, that's right.
And there was organic coconut and there was a little bit of almond sugar cookie, and I liked it. Now I have more, and I'm very excited.
Well, I knew the Santa's cookies went over well, like with Wes even.
Wes, he was smelling it when I brewed it, and he was like, "Oh, that smells so good. What is that? Can I have some?" So yeah, no, that one was excellent.
And to drink later,
yes,
Laura brought me cranberry pear black tea, which is black tea, tart cranberries, and crisp pear. So that will be very exciting. I didn't want to open it all up because I don't have enough. I didn't have enough steep
filters
to do.
I should have brought mine. That's from David's Tea. That is one of my favorites. So, and actually, I have when I'm doing tea mixing, I have let me think about it, a pear caramel from Stash Tea, and I put in half pear caramel and half cranberry pear.
Oh, wow.
Because the pear,
I have some caramel tea at home, too.
There you go. When I'm like mixing all kinds of different things together, just cause.
Because that's what one does. And it's March Madness.
Yes, it's March Madness, and this is a KU Jayhawks household.
Yes,
so sadly, I come from a K-State household. Of course, they don't really amount to much in baseball.
Basketball.
Basketball, sorry.
I have no idea what they're
Clearly, I'm perfect. I know they play pretty good football, but they're
pretty
not.
Good.
Yeah.
There was a time in like the 70s, so when I was in grade school, junior high, high school, that the Wildcats whooped up on the Jayhawks in basketball. It was pretty.
Well, so my husband's a Wildcat, so clearly we can't be all rooting for the Jayhawks.
Yes.
But that's okay. You can.
If you hear cursing in the background, I don't know if you can see. Way off in that direction is my brother watching his enormous LED television with basketball, the tournament on. Of course, the Jayhawks are not playing yet, so you won't hear lots of yelling and cursing, but you may hear the occasional "oh" while he's watching it.
Well, and I was heartily amused. Originally, I was supposed to come up yesterday, but there was a KU game yesterday, and I was asked if I might consider coming on Sunday instead because my hosts would be busy.
Well, there wasn't a KU game, but there were other games.
Oh,
there was some concern about that.
Yes, so I postponed the visit, and now they'll be ready at 4:00 or thereafter. So finished objects. This is not, well, I guess it's recent in the last couple of weeks. I mean, I don't have a podcast because, like, I'm the world's slowest knitter and nobody wants to see me knit the same thing week after week after boring week. So this is my most recent finished object. It's called the Wave Deck Shawl. I don't know if you can see it very well. By Kate Atherley. Which is a free pattern. It's a nitty pattern. It's a half pie shawl.
And it is in DK weight, so it goes fairly quickly. It's a pretty quick knit. The other full pie I knit was also a DK weight shawl by the same designer. And it's in Peyton's Classic DK in Sea Green Heather, which is like my favorite color of yarn.
It's a teal and it's got flecks of yellow and blue. Yeah, it's just gorgeous.
This is the same. I knit that sweater with a shawl collar.
Oh, okay.
That's in worsted, and it's a different color name, but it's basically the same color.
Well, I'm a teal girl, so you can always give me teal. I'm always happy with teal.
So there's that. That's the only, besides my socks, which nobody wants me to see. Wants to see me on the floor with my feet in the air, but I did finish a pair of socks.
Well, so this week I finished some charity hats. This is 4 and 5. I knit a barley hat, and this was out of some Art Yarns Super Merino. I think it's a DK. And I had one skein, which is 100 yards, and I was like, what am I ever going to do with one skein of 100 yards? Hat! So, and the second one I knit was Little Scallops, which is by Maria Carlander. And it worked because I just had a little bit of the blue down at the bottom, so I did that for the brim, and then I had this black, which I don't even know what it is. It's actually
it's black yarn.
Kind of crunchy. It's some old acrylic, but I figure kids, when I'm donating the kids' hats, they're going to take kind of a beating, they're going to get washed, they're going to get dried, so I wanted to be sure that it was like material that could be washed and dried.
They're going to get drug in the ground, the dirt.
Yes, exactly. So those are the only two things that I finished this week, but those will go in my box too. I have a friend who is a counselor at a school in Kansas City, Missouri for students who don't have a lot, and some of them come to school without hats. And so this past year she asked me for hats, and I was like, oh my god, gotta knit some on my Thanksgiving trip. But so my plan is this year to knit a whole bunch and have a whole box to give her in the fall when she's ready for them.
I like that pattern because I have not done color work yet.
Yes, that would be great.
I've been hung up on lace and cables, that this might be a good beginner color work kind of thing. It doesn't have a tremendous amount.
And I have a tutorial that shows you a little bit how to catch your floats. So for instance, what you do is you're holding the black yarn behind the blue. Show the inside of the knitting for a minute. And the point is that when you have large areas, like down at the bottom where you've got 7 or 8 stitches that you're running behind, you can catch the float in the middle so it only floats behind a couple stitches and then a couple more, so that you don't have like a big long string, and it helps with tension as well because it doesn't pucker quite as much.
Cool.
So, and I've got a good tutorial for that. I can send you that. It's a nice video that shows how to do it.
Excellent.
So, I guess that's it for finished objects. So what are you working on?
This is just vanilla socks. In the...
I like the yarn.
Yeah, I like the yarn too.
I know, figuring out which direction on the camera is always...
That's not a horrible, but the color's not great, but it's not horrible.
Yeah, it's okay.
This Fiesta Yarns Baby Boom.
Oh, yeah.
In the Aster colorway.
Very
My other
pretty.
socks are Fiesta Yarns Baby Boom, too, that you're not seeing, so I don't know why I'm talking about them. They're just vanilla socks with a Fish Lips Kiss heel. After the incident in which I ended up with a toe of one sock of a completely other yarn and color.
Oops.
My policy is now that the first time I knit a yarn, the first time I knit socks out of a sock yarn, I will do a toe-up sock with so that I know how deep I can make it and still be safe. So it's been toe-up for a while around here. So that's that.
I have midget feet, so
I have the opposite of midget feet. I have like size 11 plus feet.
So I am actually right at the heel turn on. Well, I'm working on the flap right now. But I have this is a pattern. Ooh, it's blowing it out just a little bit. But this is called the Calendula Cable Socks, and it is by I'm gonna totally mispronounce this because it's German. I think it's Wollhun. It's Wollhun. Wollhun. It's her last name, probably. And the yarn is Lammy Toes, which is, if you watch any other podcasts, she is so nitpicky, and she has the Not a Podcast, and it is pink and all kinds of other colors. It's getting blown out just a little bit, but it is super fun and speckly. And her shop is Lammy Toes, which is on Etsy. So if you're interested, this is her BFL superwash nylon. Ooh, that's a little bit better in the color. And as you can see, it's got a really crazy cool cable up one side, and it'll go down the foot, and then I'll do the next one, and it's got the cable on the opposite side. So cool. They're like mirror opposites. I like that.
The color looks really cute on the back too, where it's just plain stockinette.
Yeah, it's just all kinds of speckled. And I was talking to Amanda about this, and she said that for her first couple skeins of yarn, she just kept putting them back in the dye bath and adding little drops of more things. So she said her first couple skeins were super rainbowy, and they don't end up quite as rainbowy these days because she doesn't put them back quite as many times, because I would have to imagine that's a very intensive process. But yeah. And then the other thing that I was going to say is, because I'm going to take it off the blocker now, this is very exciting for me because the only other time that I've ever gotten to knit while I am podcasting is when I visited Kim and Sam and Liz in Tempe, because normally I'm showing stuff and talking about stuff, and so I don't get to actually sit and knit on my own podcast. So I'm very excited about this.
Wow, she does knit.
This is a milestone. Well, I knit, but I don't. I
guess maybe normally you take somebody in your basement. You
yes,
know,
that's
it. You will knit.
That's it. I keep the basement slave. Exactly.
The basement knitter.
The basement knitter. So I also see you have your pie shawl here.
Yes, I do.
I'd love to hear about it.
As soon as I get to the end of this row.
Oh, end of the row. End of the row.
Clearly,
I didn't give her enough notice about when she was supposed to. So
vamp for a while.
Yes, exactly. Well, so actually, this would have been the perfect time for Kim and Sam's faces.
Yes,
so I don't know if you watch Come Knit With Us. If you don't, you should. But it was the last episode that they put up, wasn't it? Because they haven't recorded for a couple weeks. Liz was on there, and it was right after the llamas got loose in Mesa. And for those of you, if any of you are on Twitter, you probably heard about this. 2 llamas, Leopold and Lorenzo.
That actually wasn't the name of the llamas. That's just what I knew.
Oh, okay. I thought that was actually the... Never mind. So 2 llamas got loose in Mesa, got out of their fencing trailer, and ran around the city, and it involved kind of a chase with a bunch of, I assume, farmers, animal trainers, and some police trying to lasso
who owned the llamas. Right. Eventually, like some guy who'd been like doing yard work.
Right, and it made the news, and it made BBC, actually, and there were all these comments about them, and so if you watched Come Knit With Us, Liz cut out 2 of the little llamas. It was a white llama and a black llama, and she named them, and she had them kind of running around in the podcast. Well, so this morning, it occurred to me that what I really needed was I needed Kim and Sam's faces to run around in the podcast with us.
In the background.
But unfortunately, I didn't think about it in enough time, so we didn't actually get it, but
so
maybe next
here
time.
In spirit.
Yes, we miss you, girls.
Should we do a sippy?
Yes, we should. This is an ode to Bunny and an ode to Kim and Sam, and we miss you.
Yes, we do.
It's a little hard to do sippy with hot tea. Sippy owl. Sippy owl.
So, again, we're going to have a guest appearance today of my brother's. Since this is the corner of Knit and Tea. I don't know if I set this down.
It's a beautiful teapot.
My brother was in the Navy.
Oh, there we go.
As I tried it. This is all backwards, so if you don't podcast, just know that this is a lot harder than it was.
It is really hard to figure out where on the screen it's going to come up.
So when my brother was in the Navy in the early 90s, it's really blowing out. Of course, it's shiny. He bought...
Tilt it down just slightly, like... Exactly. Yeah.
There we go.
That's how I deal with the window blowing it out.
He bought this tea set on the dock in Hong Kong. He said there were big boxes. It's got some sort of writing on the back that probably says "Yankee go home" or "Sailors will buy anything." He bought the whole set.
It's beautiful.
So, here's the little
Got a little creamer.
A little creamer. It's very pretty.
It is. It's gorgeous.
He said there was a lot of different sets to choose from, and he chose this one because it had Chinese lettering on it. There's Chinese lettering on the lids, too. I don't know if you can see. And the sugar. And then there's some larger and smaller plates and several little tiny teacups. It's
beautiful.
So I told him that would make an appearance on today's Corner of Knit and Tea.
Yes, we had to have tea content.
And because he is, you know, my mother's son, be careful with it, be careful with it. It's just display china. It's not made to use.
I was going to say, so he's never allowed to take it out of this house, just like your wedding china.
Just like my wedding china, which is up there.
I got to see the wedding china.
Has been since, well, many years ago. It was originally my mother's wedding china. I can get it. It's called Lute Song.
This is show and tell Corner of Knit and Tea today.
Show and tell. Find.
It is gorgeous.
I am occasionally allowed to touch it.
It is beautiful.
My mom had it for her wedding china.
Ooh, that shows up really nicely.
And it's
just beautiful.
Red Wing Pottery, which is from Red Wing, Minnesota.
It's just gorgeous.
And the pattern name is Lute Song. And so my mother has this entire set.
It's like all cabinets up here. And one day you might be able to use it.
And one day, that has never been used, ever. It has never been eaten from. It has never done anything but sit very carefully in that cabinet.
It's a little sad.
Yeah, well.
I was going to say it would be nice occasionally, like on Christmas or like a very special occasion. I'm not saying every day.
She bought the cheap Christmas china.
Oh, okay. Okay. I see.
But she gave it to me for my wedding since I didn't see the point. I was marrying a farmer and didn't see the point of having a china pattern that I was never going to,
I ended up with family china from an aunt whose children did not want it and had no children, so I have a whole box of china in my closet that hasn't been used.
For our wedding, we got Corelle. My great aunt Jessie bought us a whole set of Corning Corelle, which is now old enough. When Corelle gets to be a certain age, the thing is, right, it doesn't break. Or you can drop it and it doesn't break.
Right, but after a certain age.
After a certain number of years and a certain number of trips through the dishwasher and the microwave and the refrigerator.
That's not true anymore.
When you drop it, it shatters into a billion splinters. And it will throw shards of glass. They're long, really thin splinters. It will throw it like 20, 30 feet when it finally explodes.
Well, we did not get china, and my husband was very, very... So my husband generally is pretty easygoing and doesn't have opinions on anything. Like, just... He's kind of like, okay, do whatever. And for our wedding, he was like, you better not get floofy dishes. And I was like, well, but...
Floofy dishes?
So we went out and looked, and we have black Mikasa, and they've got kind of a swirl pattern. But that's what we got for our wedding, was Mikasa, kind of everyday ceramic ware, so that we could use them. And luckily... we had one piece of silverware that met a garbage disposal, but
untimely demise.
Yes, an untimely demise. But the ceramic ware has actually held up very well. I don't even think we've broken anything.
Broken any of it?
Yeah.
Lucky.
So, and we're at almost 7 years. So
yeah. Well, Newlyweds. So anyhow, it was my mom's wedding pottery china, and then it was my wedding pottery / china 32 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. And everybody says, "Oh, what's the secret to a long marriage?" Inertia. That's the secret to a long marriage. But I was never allowed to take my wedding china out of the house.
Yes.
So I come and visit it every once in a while.
I asked her today what she was going to do when her wedding china finally got to come live with her, as it will, I assume, someday,
eventually.
But
I don't know. I'll have to buy a place to put it.
Many years from now.
So this is...
So back to knitting.
Yes, back to knitting. Well, it's tea related. China is tea related.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know if you can see. Probably not. Anyhow, this is my pie shawl.
She's doing Mandala.
By
is that Renee?
Renee Leverington, who's Goddess Knits. And if you, I don't know when you'll be able to upload this, but today, March 22nd, I noticed when I went to look stuff up, because I never know who designed anything I knit. I'm not one of those people that knows everything about what they're knitting. It's on sale for $5, down from I think normally $10.
Yeah, normally it's $10 or $15. So, and it's for intrepid knitters. It is a ton of charts, and I'm most impressed because Liz has been planning her pie shawl for years. She has it all in Knit Companion, ready to go. And you plotted exactly which charts and options. This is one of those where there are like a million options. It's kind of a build your own adventure.
It started out life as a mystery knit along. So for each chart of 4, circles as you build out. So for each 4 of the 4 charts, there's like 4 different options.
Wow.
And they're very different. And so I found some that I really, really liked. And I have yarn hanging off my ear. And some that I was not quite as fond of. So I had to spend time surfing through all the finished objects on Ravelry, because of course everybody knit different things, and not everybody put which chart they chose. Right. And then a lot of people modified the charts as they knit them, so there's a lot of different options. This particular pie shawl I started on Pi Day, which was a week ago Saturday.
Yes.
Which was 3.1415, March 14th of 2015.
And you could even go at 9:26 and 53.
I didn't quite make it to 9:26. Right. I think I made it before 10 because I was making breakfast at that point.
That was the day that you got drafted into making breakfast for a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, it was. That was one of those like, hey, instead of going out for breakfast for your dad's birthday, let's just make biscuits and gravy at home. And I'm like, oh, that's a great idea.
That sounds delightful.
Yeah.
Who's making the biscuits and gravy?
Yeah, except that the plan, I was thinking was that we were going to do it at their house. What they were thinking was we were going to do it here.
So there was biscuits and gravy.
So I made biscuits and gravy and bacon and scrambled eggs. And
I was going to say, when Liz comes home, she cooks.
I cook a lot.
Yeah.
I'm sure nowhere to eat in this town.
I was going to say, I'm sure you cook quite a bit at home too, but you really cook here because it's 2 bachelors and you.
And as my dad said the last time I came home, oh, it's sure nice to have a home cooked meal, because they eat out. They don't cook.
So they do eat out mostly.
They eat out literally every meal. So because living with my mom has made them terrified. Now my mom she's got very late stage Alzheimer's, and she's been in a nursing home in a locked facility for a couple of years. But to say that she was a fanatic housekeeper would be the most immense of understatements. So this is where David gets the don't use it for all of his stuff.
We have it to save it.
Yeah. It's a display model. So her whole kitchen was a display model. They are now terrified to use anything, and they're convinced that cleaning up is such a horrific effort, because she made it sound like it was a horrific effort, because when she made coffee in the coffee maker, this is an example. She made coffee in the coffee maker, she took the whole coffee maker apart.
Oh, to clean it every single time?
Washed it, soapy water inside and out, and dried it, and not the pot, mind you, the mechanic, the maker part, and washed it and dried it and put it away.
So they were convinced that making coffee took an hour because
you had to clean up.
Right.
And it had to be returned. Everything had to be returned to pristine, like new condition.
Well, I was going to say, they don't use the kitchen because they're afraid they'll have to clean it.
They think cleaning is just a horrible, onerous chore, and there's no dishwasher in the house. Because it's an old house, so it kind of is.
I will say it's quite clean here, and your father and your brother did make some comment about company. So yeah.
I did Instagram a picture of Dad with the little vacuum before you got here.
I didn't see that. I because I was driving. Because I was going to say, I was impressed that for people who are so afraid of cleaning, the house is perfectly clean.
Well, I've been here for like a week and a couple of days, so that helps. That helps. But they have a cleaning lady that comes in.
Oh, okay.
Before I come home.
Oh. Right, because they're going to be sure they're not living in. Right, yeah. Perfect. Well, I actually.
What are you knitting? Oh,
yes, I brought it to show. I don't have a lot more on it than last week. I'm knitting the Heliotaxis Pie Shawl by Renata Brenner. And so I have gotten a little further. This is charts 1, 2, and 3. I will also tell you a cautionary tale. Last week I showed you charts 1 and 2. Always check for errata.
Oh.
Now, I had downloaded the pattern quite a few years ago, and I believe 2011 was when it was first published. And I knit chart 1, and then I knit chart 2, and was like, okay, I think this is working. And I got to chart 3, and I looked at the chart, and now I had a raging headache at the time, but I was looking at the chart, and I was like, there are more yarn overs in here than balance out. Like, unless the pattern is actually changing size in this particular row, there are too many yarn overs in here. And I kept trying to knit it, and it's got 8 stitches between sections at that point. And I was like, I always ended up with 2 left over, and I was thinking, what the hell am I doing? So I did what any sane knitter would do earlier in the process, which is I went and looked, and I went to see if there were forums and whatever, and then I saw this little note that said problems with charts, and I went and looked, and I was like, I wonder if there's an update for this pattern. Now, this is totally on me. She originally released the pattern in 2011, and I had the original 2011 pattern downloaded into my library, which I had printed out to use. There was an update in 2012. So, I mean, I'm 3 years behind the times. And the interesting thing is that all of a sudden I looked at it, and you were supposed to move the marker once in chart 2, which was not on the original charts. And I was like, that explains why nothing came to little points and why I couldn't see the pattern. I just assumed it was too early in the shawl to really be able to see the pattern.
Yeah, that's the problem, right?
No. It was me. So on Monday or Tuesday, I ripped back. Now, I had only done charts 1 and 2, so I was maybe about 25 or 30 rows in, so it wasn't terrible. But I ripped the whole thing back out and took a night to get back to where I was, and then I've since added chart 3, which was another 50 rows or so, and you can see you can sort of start to see the patterns.
Oh, there's points.
Yes, there are points. So I am right to the point where I'm starting chart 4. And that's 50 rows of chart. So I hadn't started it. I got to this point last night, and I was like, okay, I better stop, because if I want to show it, I don't want to be in the middle of the chart.
Yeah.
So, and this is Squoosh Yarns. It's the Sublime base, which is their Superwash Merino, and the color is not showing up. It's kind of a brownie pink. It's got bits of pink. Well, okay, so it's got bits of pink in the skein.
How about if we hold the towel behind it?
Oh, that might work. We have a towel so that we don't spill on Mom's Mom's beautiful dining room table. So, yeah, you can sort of see here. Yeah. Yes.
It's like
perfect.
Well, let me say I'm here.
Okay. Perfect. So, this is my pie shawl so far, and I still have a long ways to go, because I don't know how many yards yours calls for. Mine calls for 1,600 or 1,800, so I have miles to go before I sleep.
I do. I don't know how many yards it calls for. I'm not even sure I'm knitting it in the original, because I'm knitting this is Cascade Alpaca Lace, and I'm knitting it on size 2 needles because, and I have no idea what that is in
2.25?
No,
2.25 is ones. I can't remember whether it's 2.5 or 2.75.
So anyhow, little needles, because I don't like, I like a denser fabric.
I think mine's on 4s, so it's a little bit bigger, but not.
So people have knit this in so many different yarn weights and so many.
Oh, so who knows?
Yeah, it could be anything from
but you have a good
1,200 to 2,500 yards. But yeah, I have. Oh gosh, I have probably. I've got 2,000 yards, I'm sure.
Oh, so you'll have plenty for however long
until I get very, very sick of it.
Yeah, I was going to say, check back with us us in like 6 months because I predict both of us are going to be like, here's my effing pie shawl again.
Well, and I'm a monogamous knitter.
Oh, so you'll actually...
I'm one of those
So you'll
people.
actually get through it pretty quick.
I have a traveling sock.
Well, right, because you can't always knit.
I can't always, You can't
always knit.
So that lives in my purse, and that will... Traveling socks can take me months and months and months to knit.
Well, it just depends when you have time.
And then I have one main project that lives at home, usually where the cat can't get it.
You do not want to let your cat hear that. Your sweater, your core sweater.
My core sweater. It's been a revelation here because I can just sit it down and walk away.
And nobody touches it.
I don't have to put it in a lockbox.
Dave doesn't.
No, Dave doesn't touch it. David's not
He's pretty, he's knitting trained.
Yeah. I ain't touching that. Yeah. And then I have like a project at work that lives at work and that I do during my lunch hour when I take a lunch hour. And so I'm pretty monogamous. Otherwise, I don't know, I'm one of those people that just feel that gets anxiety when something is not being finished. Or
so I'm a little bit the opposite and a little bit the same. What happens, I also need multiple projects. The socks I started at work this week because I needed, once I finished the hats, I had no quick project at work. And I had started the pie shawl, which I was working on in the evenings. And I'm supposed to be knitting a sample sweater for a store, but we've had some gauge issues. So, we're still negotiating what pattern it's going to be. So I've just been gauge swatching, but I haven't actually had that yet. And so I didn't want to knit lace last night, and I've been looking at all the like springy sweaters and things. Yeah. And, so I was like, you know what? Screw it, I'm just going to cast on something else.
There are no rules in knitting.
There are no rules in knitting. And actually, on this one, I'm going to ask you for some feedback, too. The pattern is Krita.
Oh, I've seen that, yeah.
Which is, it's a knitty pattern. It's a beautiful lace cardigan to be knit to basically wear over dresses. Now, the pattern uses... it calls for Lisa Souza Max, which technically is an Aran. It's a merino silk single. So, right. So the pattern itself on Ravelry called for worsted weight. Because worsted and Aran, you can often get the same gauge. And they want you to use size 9 needles and get about 4 stitches to the inch. So my yarn's DK weight. But I decided that I could probably still, on size 9 needles, get gauge. And I am getting gauge. It's a little looser, and the thing that I'm not sure whether I like, which is also sort of the opinions portion of it, is that a merino silk single is going to be a little fluffy, and it's going to have a little bit of a halo. And so I wasn't sure whether or not I was going to like the resulting fabric, because what I'm using doesn't have a halo. It's a merino cashmere nylon. So, it is in a dark red, and let's see if I can, it's a kind of almost a blood red, really, and it is a merino cashmere nylon single, and I think I actually like it quite a bit, even though it is a little bit loose.
Well, and it's not going to be like your deepest of cold, dark winter.
No, I mean, it really, because it's also going to be a lacy cardigan, so it's going to be for, like, spring and maybe even summer in the air conditioning.
Yeah.
So, and I wasn't sure whether I was going to like it particularly around the increases, because I figured they'd be a little more defined than I wanted them to be. You know, because they wouldn't blend quite as much, but I actually don't even think that bothers me so much.
Well, the colorway also sort of...
Yeah, it's a semi-solid. It's a red. It's actually...
I think it's probably a lot more obvious in some other color, in a colorway that's not semi-solid.
Right. And the yarn the yarn is actually discontinued. It is Yo-Yo, and actually this also makes me laugh. It is Yo-Yo Cash Sport string. So they call it a sport weight, except in Ravelry it's listed as a DK, and it actually really feels more like a DK to me. Yeah. And I've knit in a pattern with, so like, I don't know what I'm knitting, or but I am getting
random yarn.
Yes, random yarn, random pattern. But I am getting 4 stitches to the inch easily. So
it's not like superwash or anything, and it won't.
No.
So when you swatched and got it wet,
I what?
I'm also one of those people.
Yeah, I did the swatch. The other thing is that the pattern says that it calls for 0 to 2 inches of negative ease. So I'm knitting slightly smaller than my bust. So my thought was, even if it grew a little bit, it won't be big.
Well, the only thing that I would worry about was, because I have been around Angela. You didn't meet Angela. Angela at Tempe Yarn and Fibers. Kim and Sam know Angela. Angela is the person that when you go, oh, hey, see what I'm knitting? And you hold it up for like a half a second. She's like, you have a miscrossed cable. She does the knitting help. And
So she would say that because I didn't swatch
fabulous.
it, I might be.
Well, no, I mean, just because I've hung around with her long enough that, but when I'm making a garment, I don't swatch for. I don't swatch for socks.
Normally I do kind of swatch for garments, but I guess part of the reason that I didn't on this one is because it's a top-down raglan. Yeah. So I can try it on as I go.
My thing, though, I'm not fond of superwash, and my thing with superwash, though, is when you get it wet and it grows, You worry it's going to grow too much. Well, if it's going to be way more open.
Okay. Well.
Is it superwash?
I don't know.
If it's not superwash, then it probably won't be a problem.
It probably... Well, I don't know whether it is or not. I'll have to check.
But...
You know, and I did leg warmers in this, and it didn't grow a ton.
Didn't change much. Well, then you should be fine. I think this is a good... You don't want a really dense... I wouldn't think you'd want a really dense.
Normally I would probably knit it a little more dense, but not for this pattern because of the fact that it's supposed to be like a springy dress cardigan. So
that's very pretty.
So that's the other thing that I've been working on, and I got, so far into it, and I figured I'd just, I'd ask you, and then I'm going to ask my, Anna called it the Nitty Committee, which is my knit night friends.
So the itty bitty nitty committee.
Yes, take it to the itty bitty nitty committee and see what they think. So, I guess that's
I like that fabric.
Yeah, it is. It's coming out kind of nice, and I think it would be a nice, like I said, in the spring or in the air conditioning or something. Mm-hmm. So I guess that's all the stuff I have to talk about.
Yeah.
And we're like double my normal episode length. That's what happens when I add a co-host.
Yeah, and she talks a lot and shows China.
Yes. Well, thank you for joining us today. I don't have any, I didn't bring any of my spinning with me, so we'll go back to kind of the regular format next week where I'll kind of blow through everything I have. But this has been fun, and I thank you for inviting me up, and we're going to have some lasagna, which sounds fabulous. And everybody said we're at knitting church.
Knitting church.
It's Sunday afternoon. So we'll be at knitting church for the rest of the afternoon.
And eating lasagna, which I may have kind of accidentally doubled the amount of ricotta cheese in it.
So it'll be cheesy. It'll be delicious,
and a lot more meat, too, because I don't know how to make skimpy food.
That's okay. It sounds delicious. Well, thank you for visiting us, and we'll see you again sometime soon.